So you've seen the last couple of drum and bass tutorials I've dropped over the last couple months, but I've never really went into how I make the drums on these songs. I just thought people would be a little more interested in the melodic layers, but today I will uncover how I make my drum and bass drums. First, I'm going to cover the two drum patterns I use the most. The first pattern will have a snare on every 2 and 4 beat, and then the kick will land here on the first, and then right before that second snare. And then the second pattern is a slight variation to this. We will have to extend the drum pattern one more time. And then instead of having the kick land again on the 1, we have it land a couple beats over here and then back here. Then all we need to do is add the accent snare in. I will also create some kind of variation towards the end of phrases just to make things a little less repetitive. I will typically add one more accent snare a beat before the drum break loops again. You can also do a kick and then the accent snare. I'm basically just creating small little fills during this section, and then I just 2-step the hi-hats. Another thing I really like to do is to layer in a distorted open hi-hat on the first beat of every 2 bars just to really add a little bit of punch on the downbeats. And then of course you can layer in other hi-hats to make your pattern a little bit more interesting. And this is basically the foundation to all of my drum and bass songs. Then I will start looking for a drum break to help blend in a bit more of that classic drum and bass sound with a more modern one. I'll leave a link in the description to some posts on r/drum kit where you can download these same kits for free. Once I find a drum break I think will work well in the song, I open up SliceX and drop the break right in there. Since we already have a rhythm going with the individual drum samples, I will just chop up the drum break to match what we already have. Now that we have both layers going, I will route the drum break onto a mixer track and EQ out the kick because I want the kick sample we chose to be front and center. If I find that the ride cymbal in the drum break is a little too harsh for the song, I will either duck the high end out of it a bit or filter it out entirely. It just purely depends on how I think the two are blending together. Here's an example from a song that I already finished where I cut a ton of the high end out of the drum break because I thought it just got a little too in the way of the hi-hats I layered in. Now a lot of the times this is all I really end up doing, but sometimes I find that the snare and the drum break isn't really blending all that well with the snare sample I chose. So what I do to fix that is sidechain the snare to the drum break to duck the volume on it whenever it hits to help bring it forward a little bit. As you can see, I did that here in the Take My Breath remix I did. Another issue I will also run into sometimes is having the drum samples still sound a bit disconnected here from the drum breaks. So what you can do if you're running into this issue is using a ride cymbal or a hi-hat loop from Splice, or if you have Superior Drummer or any other acoustic drum sampler, you can create your own patterns using one of the libraries from it. This is to help connect the modern sounding drum samples with the vintage sounding drum breaks by using more modern sounding acoustic drum cymbal loops that have a little bit of both worlds. I did that here in my song Monster. Let's hear how it sounds without the ride cymbal and the hi-hats. It definitely helps fill out the gaps in the drum break and helps glue the two very different sounding styles into one. And that is really it, guys. That is how I go about making my drums and my drum and bass songs. I really love going for a modern sounding mix, but still with that blend of vintage drum and bass. So that's why I try to combine the two to make something that includes both elements. If you enjoyed the songs, I have short tutorials on how I made each of them that you can watch right now. I hope the video was helpful. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.